Welcome to the Fade Route NFL podcast. This one for week 4 of the 2025-26 season. We are going to look back at week 3. We're going to cover week 4, as I said, look at the odds, the over-unders, discuss some of the games, crouton, sink or swim, scratch and sniff. I have a random fact, but before I do anything else, I'm going to welcome in the mayor. Mayor, how are you?
I am pretty good. That 3-0 feeling that those NFL teams and fans have right now is sound. I am one of them. There are still six 3-0 football teams, and there are seven teams that are 0-3. Excuse me. The running joke at work right now is Owen. Owen, nice to meet you. And now it's 0-3. So a couple of those fans are pretty disappointed. We have a 3-0 versus 3-0 matchup. We have an 0-3 versus 0-3 matchup this week, two of those. So two teams are still going to be winless. We've talked about that at great lengths. I've already gone off on a tangent. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, that was a weird week, and we're gonna talk about how weird the week was. So I have I'm good, by the way. I have a random fact. And since there's a game in Dublin this week, I thought it would be appropriate to use something of an Irish fact. Although I don't know how big of a thing this is in Ireland. Have you heard of splitting the G?
Splitting the G. No, I have not.
It is something people do to pour when they pour a Guinness beer. So from the tap, obviously. So
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
the idea is to get the beer and the foam perfect so that the G on the Guinness is perfectly separated, split.
I'm convinced people who drink Guinness stick their noses up at the world.
Yeah, it's like eating a sandwich. There's not a lot of potency to it, but there's a lot of filling you up to it. All
Yeah,
right, so
I've tried it once, and I'm not a fan. Hey, teachers their own.
yeah, so do you know how long it typically takes to properly split the G? You want to guess?
Probably about 45, probably about 2 minutes, I think it is.
That's exactly right. At 1 minute and 58 seconds, but we'll call it two, which is a long
The
time.
only reason I know that is because I frequented bars and a friend of mine would order a Guinness when he was halfway done with his Guinness. And it's because he knew that in 5 minutes he was going to be ready for a beer and that beer needed to be ready for him.
See, now that's a more interesting fact from real life. Yeah, it's a long time. Like, it's a long time to get a beer poured. All right, we can move on. Like I said, there is a Dublin game at 9:30 Eastern time. I'm skipping Thursday Night Football. I don't want to talk about that first. Seattle is at Arizona tonight. As you are listening to this, we're recording on Thursday. Seattle is at Arizona. Arizona, the last I checked, was favored by 1 at home, and the over-under was 43.5. We talked about Arizona being a fraudulent team last week, and I believe that has been confirmed. Seattle, though, looks like they're going to be something to be reckoned with. Do you have any thoughts on this game tonight?
Yeah, this is they're both 2-1, so they're both teams already lost to San Francisco, so they've got an early division loss. One of these teams is going to have definitely the leg up to run down San Francisco one game back, which isn't obviously a lot. However, both teams have not given up a lot of points on defense so far. They're like second and fourth, respectively, in the league for scoring after 3 weeks. But Arizona's offense is just never going to be there, and Geno Smith's Sam Darnold will be able to get something together in Seattle, and I think they'll win this game.
Yeah, I tend to side with you. I don't know. Arizona's so injured and they already aren't a great team, so I just can't see them winning against this pretty good Seattle team. All right. Now we can talk about the Dublin game. There's a game in Dublin 9:30 Eastern Time, Minnesota at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is an underdog here, but obviously it's not home underdog because they're in Dublin. Minnesota's -3 out coming off of that pretty amazing win last week over the Bengals. Pittsburgh, I don't know, reeling a little bit, not as good as maybe some people hoped or expected. But what do you think about Pittsburgh +3, the over under 41?
You know, I think Pittsburgh's in a good spot in this game. Being that it's not a home game or not an away game, it's a away game for both teams. Sunday morning, unfortunately, I'm working and I'm not going to be able to see this game or the 1 o'clock games. It's very unfortunate. However, I do. I like Pittsburgh's chances in that game, and 2.5 points is quite a bit for both teams having to fly across the pond to play a football game.
Yeah, I saw it at 3, which could affect how we're betting this week. I don't have this game, but that's what the early line is. Obviously, it's moved a half a point. Yeah. Um, did you see the over under at 41 still?
I see it at 40 and a half, but again, we're probably looking at different sites, so we just, it just depends on where you look and when you look sometimes.
Yeah, definitely when you look is making it a big factor because I think I'm looking at the Hard Rock lines and I thought that was what we were going to do. Is that where you're looking?
No, of course I didn't look on the Hard Rock lines at the moment, and I don't have the ability to look at that at the moment. But I'll try. If that's the line you got, that's the line we'll go with.
Okay, again, I don't know if anybody's got any bets on that. 1 p.m. games, Washington at Atlanta. Atlanta, a home dog. Washington -2.5. The over-under is 45.5. This Atlanta team got blown out by Carolina. Just when you think you know how these teams are gonna behave in a game, Carolina blows out Atlanta. What was that, 30-0?
Yeah,
Atlanta looked really bad. We still don't know how good Carolina is because Atlanta was so bad. Washington continues to roll. They didn't have Jaden Daniels, but they had no problem winning last week. Do you have any thoughts on Washington -2.5 at Atlanta?
yeah, that's probably a pretty interesting game as well. Washington able to get the job done. When your backup can come in and set the world, and get a W, that's good. Atlanta has all the tools to win. They just don't seem to win. That 30-0 loss is probably pretty embarrassing, and the players probably took that to heart. And hopefully, they can get a little bit of motivation to get a little better for the remainder of the season. However, I don't think it's going to happen this week. I see Washington taking this game.
Yeah, I think it's hard to pick Atlanta after that week last week, but also we don't want to overreact to a game like that where it just got out of hand. And looked like maybe Atlanta just kind of gave up some point because they just couldn't put anything together. The next game is New Orleans at Buffalo. Now, the line I saw was Buffalo -16.5, which is a lot of points. They are the over/under is 47.5. Um, Not interested in that many points, but I can obviously see this being a blowout. I looked at the money line just for fun, and if you want to take Buffalo, it's -2,000.
Yeah, so that's bet 20,000 to win 1,000.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Buffalo is first in pass defense in the league and second in rush defense in the league. But none of that matters because their offense can put 30 on you before you understand what even happened. And I got a pretty good feeling they're going to be able to win this game. 16 and a half is insane. I don't know why anyone would want to do such a thing. But if you needed, if you wanted to place a really large money line bet, like I said, just to make a couple of bucks, just to know you got over on the Hard Rock, go right ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't have that kind of money, but yeah, like you said, if you do, it's a pretty sure bet. Cleveland at Detroit. Detroit favored by 8.5. Short week for Detroit, but I don't know if it's going to matter too much. Obviously, that Cleveland defense is really good, so we're going to kind of see that defense against offense type of matchup here. And the over-under is 45, so they're expecting Detroit to put some points up, I think, on Cleveland in Detroit. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
10-game road dog. I mean, yeah, that's what Vegas is calling a victory. Detroit has averaged 44 points in their two victories, and the over/under is 44.5. That's I find that fascinating that the over/under is that low for just knowing their past two games. I don't think Cleveland's got a really good chance of winning this game. They're struggling on all sides of the ball. Joe Flacco is going to be able to maybe not give the game away, but at the same time, that Detroit offense had two 95 plus yard drives against the Ravens, and both resulted in a touchdown. They did it by running the ball down the throat of the Ravens defense and then getting 7 sacks on defense themselves against the mobile Lamar is a pretty impressive showing for a Monday night. Lions are going to win by a lot.
Yeah, I don't see Cleveland scoring much, if at all, in this game. So Detroit could put up 40 on them, I suppose, but their defense really clamped down. We'll talk about them a little later. Tennessee at Houston. Houston favored at home by 7. I don't know how this Houston team can be favored by that many points. I know Tennessee's been bad, but Houston's been bad too. So that's a lot of points. The over-under is 39. Think the lowest of the week, maybe even lowest of the season so far. Any thoughts on Tennessee at Houston?
One of these teams is finally going to get a victory, so that's good news for one of their franchises. The other one is basically out of the playoff race, probably immediately. Not mathematically, but plausible they would still make the playoffs. But not good for either one team in this particular spot. Houston could be the most fraudulent 0-3 team there is. But CJ Stroud is going to have to play like 2023, not 2025. And they're going to have to get a lot better uh, in all phases on all sides of the ball. They just need to do better.
Yeah, I just, again, I can't imagine Houston taking them -7. But yeah, I agree with all he said. The Chargers at the Giants. The Chargers -6. Giants being home dogs. They're gonna start Jackson Dart, so we're gonna see a full game, presumably, of the rookie quarterback that the Giants drafted. So the over/under is 44. Chargers look for real, and we have your first start for the rookie quarterback. Looks like the right line to me, +6. But what do you think?
That is a steep line, but yeah, when you look at the factors, 3-0 versus 0-3, so Giants are still trying to get their first victory. Is Dart the future? We'll soon find out. Chargers are firing on all cylinders. Jim Harbaugh's got that team dialed in already. It's a long season, but the Chargers are going to get this victory. 6.5 sounds about right, but I wouldn't touch that game for 6.5.
Yeah, it has real Green Bay at Cleveland potential to stay away. Um, all right, so Philadelphia at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a home dog here, which is really surprising. I thought this would be closer to even odds, but I had Tampa Bay +3.5 when I saw it. It is over under 43.5. Tampa Bay finds a way to win. I don't know if I have no interest in Philly here. So you have any thoughts on Philadelphia at Tampa Bay?
Well, Philadelphia has come down to the end of game scenarios as well so far this season against the Rams. What a wild ending that was.
Yeah.
But, Tampa Bay has won all three of their games in the last minute of regulation this season so far. They're a very good football team. They're going to be a very good football team. This is going to be a great game to watch. Going to be I don't know who's going to win, to be honest. 3.5 doesn't sound quite right. It could be, a field goal kick at the end of the game that ends up being a 1 point difference.
Yeah.
So I would, that 43.5, though, that's a pretty low number. That might be something I would look at if I were a betting man.
I don't know if you saw I mean, maybe you did in the highlights, the Jets blocking the Bucks field goal, taking it back for a touchdown. I can remember thinking at the time, even though it was like under 2 minutes, that you're leaving too much time and Baker Mayfield's going to win this game. The
Yeah,
Jets, obviously, they returned it, but I was thinking the whole time they should go down at the one and run out as much clock as they could. But, it's too exciting, to block a kick for a touchdown. Just ask
yeah.
the Eagles. So I understand why they did that. I just that if the Jets wanted to win that game, they needed to do it differently. But that's football. Carolina at New England. This is the worst game of the week, maybe the worst game of the year. New England favored by 5.5 at home, and the over/under is 43.5. Carolina coming off that 30-0 win over Atlanta. New England coming off a loss. Thoughts on Carolina at New England?
Well, if you get up really early to watch the game in Dublin and you want to take a mid-afternoon nap before the 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock game, this would be a perfect game to do it to. It's I'm sure people in Carolina and people in New England are going to watch, even though their fans seem to have just disappeared. They were everywhere, now they're not. Funny the way that works. Either way, I'm staying away from anything New England, Carolina in my entire betting career, so I'm going to continue to do so. And I don't know who's going to win this game, but either way, I don't think either team's going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm not going to stray far from my strategy of picking the good teams. So I'm not picking either of these teams this week. Indianapolis at the Rams in the first game of the late window. The Rams are favored by 3.5 against this surprising Indianapolis team. The over/under is 49.5. I picked the Titans to win the AFC South, and I obviously picked the wrong surprise team, as Indianapolis has a pretty good chance at least contending for the division, if not winning it outright. And it's surprising to see the Rams favored, but they are at home and they may actually be a more proven team. I guess that makes sense, but what do you think?
Yeah, the line probably makes sense. So far Indianapolis come out perfect. They're near the top of the league in scoring and then defensive scoring as well. They have just absolutely put it down and gotten business done. Again, it's a hot start, but 2-1 is a pretty damn good start to begin with as well. And the Rams, like you said, are a proven commodity. They've been in football, big football games for a few years now, won the Super Bowl, won playoff games. And Sean McVay is one heck of a football coach. I probably like the Rams in this spot. I think Indy's going to come to their first loss of the season, but we'll see what happens on Sunday.
All right, yeah, I'm not touching it because I don't know what to make of this Indianapolis team. I don't know. We'll see if they're for real, if they can show up in this game. Jacksonville's at San Francisco. 49ers favored by 3 at home. The over/under is 47. This Jacksonville team doesn't quite look right. San Francisco's had some injuries, but I think Purdy's back for this game. Your thoughts on Jacksonville at San Francisco?
Purdy is back. They lost Nick Bosa for the year. Injuries are a thing in the NFL all the time. They're going to have to adapt. But so far, they have run the ball very well, and they have not allowed a lot of points against the defense. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of this in this football game. They play again on Thursday, so there's that in the back of their minds. I had that mixed up last week. But either way, they do play Thursday night, the follow, so 4 days off before their next game. So there's going to be a little bit of that, I imagine, in the game, trying not to uh, waste a lot of unneeded energy and or preparing for Thursday. But they're going to get the ball done, get the job done, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the 49ers have been another one of those teams like Tampa Bay that just seem to persevere, and you can't leave any time on the clock for them. All right, Chicago's at Las Vegas. The Vegas Raiders favored by 1 at home, the over under 48. Chicago finally looked like a good team this past week, but I don't know if that's a one and done or if we're going to see that Chicago team show up again. So, you have any thoughts on the Bears at the Raiders?
Well, how many times have the Bears punted this season? I'm not
I
really
don't know.
sure.
A lot. Yeah.
But Geno Smith is Geno Smith again, and Caleb Williams has played pretty good, 7 touchdowns so far on the season. It's pretty disrespectful of the Vegas Raiders to only be favored by 1.5 at home with a team that's 1-2 coming to town, but they're 1-2 themselves. They can't ever seem to put together a good football team anymore. I think the Bears are going to be able to win this game. They're going to come in, going to be able to get enough done on offense. I think Caleb Williams will be able to throw, and Geno Smith will not be able to come to the rescue.
Yeah, I lean Chicago too, and I can't trust this Raiders team at home with that line, especially Baltimore at Kansas City. The Chiefs are home dogs, at least the last time I saw +2.5. It may have shifted after that Monday night game. I did not see it shift, but it may have. I have the Chiefs +2.5, and the over/under is 49. I don't remember the last time the Chiefs were home dogs. I'm sure it's happened, but I don't know how much recently it's happened. So this is a new territory for the Chiefs to be home dogs. Baltimore struggled against Detroit. You mentioned the 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson. This team, with the big Derrick Henry fumble, that's kind of stuff that happens, but I think he's fumbled in every game this year. Something to work on. Obviously, these defenders have learned that there's a great way to get the ball back if you can just aim your fist correctly at the football. Do you have any thoughts on Baltimore at Kansas City?
I did you get to watch the Monday night game or did you not watch it?
I only saw the highlights.
Okay. So funny thing happened. It was right after halftime and they were showing the scoring highlights of the first half. And all they did was show the 2 touchdowns that the Ravens had scored, not the 98-yard drive that the Lions went on to score the first touchdown of the game. And then a couple minutes later, I was literally on a social media site, and on NFL's page, they had a big highlight of a Ravens touchdown. And then ESPN had a big highlight of a Ravens touchdown, and they completely snuffed the Lions. And the Lions literally had control of that football game the entire time. The Ravens didn't have a chance. It just looked that way. But I think that's what's going to happen here. But the Ravens are going to come away with the win. They're better than advertised, and I think Kansas City has lost one too many pieces to their puzzle that made them great. And we're starting to see the unwinding of that dynasty. Travis Kelce has lost a step. He's a year older. Receiver trouble ever since Tyreek Hill has left. And Patrick Mahomes still does great things, but they're figuring out ways to contain him and tackle him instead of him making those big plays. This is going to be all Ravens. I think Chiefs are going to get embarrassed at home.
Yeah, Baltimore kind of embarrassed by Detroit last week. So Derrick Henry's probably thinking a lot about how he can ruin the Chiefs' chances of the playoffs here, basically. Green Bay at Dallas Sunday night football game. We talked about this game a little bit at the beginning of the season. Obviously, the big Micah Parsons trade. So it's a Micah Parsons revenge game or something like that. I saw Dallas as a home dog +7 and the over under at 47.5. Green Bay coming off a tough loss at Cleveland. I think they want to flip the script on that one a little bit. Dallas is going to be without CeeDee Lamb, at least the last I heard, and they're not a very good team defensively. So, yeah, Green Bay, this is a chance for them to put some points on the board and show that they are actually a Super Bowl contender like people thought a couple games ago. Any thoughts on Green Bay at Dallas and Sunday Night Football?
I mean, 7 points at home is embarrassing, and it's funny when you're a Cowboy. Brian Schottenheimer was being a wise guy in a clip earlier this week, like, Micah who? Like, come
Yeah.
on. You damn well know your team sucks even worse because you got rid of your best player on defense. Maybe one of the best players in the league on defense, and now, it shows. You're working for a crazy person that thinks he is a mastermind of developing a football team, and he's not. I hope Green Bay wins by 40, but it wouldn't be any indication about how good they could be or would be this season. You're the expert that picked Green Bay, not me. However, Dallas is that bad, and Green Bay is going to embarrass Dallas at home.
Yeah, I don't see any way it plays out any differently. Maybe there are some problems with Green Bay that got exposed in Cleveland, but we'll see. The Jets are at Miami for Monday Night Football. There are two Monday Night Football games this week. Jets at Dolphins. Dolphins favored at home by 2.5. The over/under is 45. Don't know really how much there is to talk about this game, other than I guess we'll see how much longer Mike McDaniel lasts there in Miami. But your thoughts on Jets at Dolphins?
Somebody is going to win their first football game of the season again.
Yeah.
So uh, if it's McDaniel, he maybe saves his job to the end of the season, but just put the writing on the wall. Take old Yeller out to the pasture now and get it over with.
Yeah, and this is a big game against the Jets. Obviously, they cut him some slack against Buffalo, but this is going to be the make or break, I think. Cincinnati's at Denver. Both of these teams very disappointing after offseason hype. Cincinnati losing Joe Burrow is obviously a tremendous deal, but Denver hasn't looked like the team that everybody thought they would, or I won't say everybody, but a lot of people, including myself, I thought Denver would continue on where they left off last season, but they don't look very good. The Broncos are favored by 7 at home, and the over/under is 44. Thoughts on Bengals at Broncos?
Yeah, this might not be a great game to watch either. It's on Monday night, so I'm sorry. It's on Monday night. I'll watch it just because it's on, but I'll be focused on the Dolphins Jets game for a little while. Flip back and forth. Um, 44. It's going to be probably a boring game, low scoring. I think Denver's going to get this done at home. I think that defense will show up again, and I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, well, unlike last week, these games start an hour apart instead of, I think that the Raiders game started at like 10 o'clock Eastern time. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So they're going to have two games going at the same time. So that's kind of fun. Depending on whether you're a fan or not, or you're just watching the games, you can flip back and forth, like you said. All right,
Yeah.
we're ready to move on. Those are the week 4 games. We're going to talk croutons, which is our word for dollars, units, whatever you want to call it. Last week, I went 1 for 1. Washington -3. Not really even ever a concern, even with the backup Marcus Mariota in there. And then San Francisco, I had them -2.5. They did win the game, but only by 1, so I missed that one. So even for the week. What about you?
Yeah, I got back on track, sort of. I won both my bets last week. I had Philly -3, and by fortune of a blocked field goal return for a touchdown, I ended up winning that one. And Indy -4. I kind of saw that as disrespectful to Indy on their line, but they definitely pulled that victory off. I've got 3 bets this week. I'm going to try to get back above sea level. I'm a little below at the moment, but I think my 3 bets are going to get locked in.
All right, I got 2, so why don't you start with your first one?
Okay, so my first one, I see Minnesota versus Pittsburgh, and we said what Pittsburgh's +3.
Yeah, we'll go with 3.
Yeah, I kind of like Pittsburgh +3 out in Dublin for 50.
All right, makes sense. If there's somebody that can figure out that Minnesota defense and their disguised blitzes and stuff, I suppose it would be Rodgers with the most experience of any quarterback in the league. So that's an exciting game. Unfortunately, I know you aren't going to be able to watch it, but maybe you can monitor it. I have Seattle at Arizona. I'm taking Seattle +1. At least that's where I saw it. It seems absurd. I don't know if it's what they call a rat line, just suckering you in for some reason, but I have no reason to think Seattle shouldn't beat Arizona, and I'll take that for 50 croutons.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I do like that for +1. That makes a lot of sense. My second one, I thought I misread it when I saw it, and I didn't. But it's Washington -2.5 against Atlanta, a team that just lost by 30 to Carolina. Screams to me they're going to lose by 10 to a football team that can score points. So yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to put 100 on this one because that's how confident I am.
You're saying Washington minus 2.5?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. Atlanta, like I said earlier, they got to bounce back, but I think Washington's just a better team, so I agree with that pick. Green Bay minus 7. I'm taking that line. I know it's a lot of points, but I don't see Dallas scoring a ton here, and Green Bay out for blood after that terrible loss at Cleveland. I'm putting 50 on Green Bay minus 7.
Yeah, that's I don't like those big points. I got to really be convinced to take that big point line. Good luck to you on that one. The other one I looked at, and I even talked about it when we previewed the game, Detroit and Cleveland, 44.5 is the over under. Detroit scored, like I said, 42 points in their 2 victories in the past 2 weeks. It's what they average. So, if Detroit has 35 and Cleveland only has 3 or 6 points towards the end of the game, the defense is going to play a little softer. Cleveland's going to get a touchdown at the end of the game. Means absolutely nothing but except pushing that over to 44.5. I would take it for 100 croutons.
All right. I like it. I think Detroit can put up points, but that Cleveland defense is maybe the best defensive unit in the league. I don't think anybody really anticipated, not that they would be not maybe a top 5 or top 7, but they look like the best singular unit in the whole league. So at least they did last week. So we'll see how they do against that powerful Detroit offense at Detroit. All right, sink or swim. I lost last week. I picked Atlanta. um, I'm going with the other strategy. You're going with the good teams first. I'm going with the shaky teams first. And so I had my first loss last week when Carolina blew out Atlanta's candle in Carolina. So I've got a loss, but this week I'm taking Chicago at the Raiders. I think Chicago showed that they can get this done last week.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting pick. I went with Buffalo last week. Like you said, I picked the big teams first. Uh, Unfortunately, it has pigeonholed me this week to where I looked up and down the schedule and I couldn't like instantly see a win other than teams I've already picked. However, I'm going to lean on the Chargers this week to get me a victory to start out 4-0 in sink or swim. I think the Chargers are going to win this game, so it seems like money in the bank for me.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I just want to save the Chargers for later, and it's like one of those, like I said, Green Bay at Cleveland kind of vibes to it, but I think the Chargers get it done. All right, scratch and sniff. I'll just go over the teams I've already eliminated. We're pretty similar on this. Chicago, New Orleans, Cleveland in week 1, which is 18 points. And then Miami in week 2, which is 17 points. Then New York Giants, Carolina, and Tennessee in week 3, which is 16 points. And then this week, I'm adding 3 more teams. I've seen enough. Cincinnati's not going to make the playoffs. Joe Burrow comes back. It'll be too late. Arizona, this is a fraudulent team. I just don't see them making the playoffs. And then New England, we already talked about them. They're kind of a mess, going through the process of young quarterback and not a lot of skill position weapons. So I've got Cincinnati, Arizona, and New England crossed off this week.
Wow, yeah, I've already got halfway to my, or what is it, 18 teams we cross off.
Yeah.
I started with Carolina, Tennessee, Chicago in week 1. I saw the writing on the wall for all 3 of those teams. Week 2, the Giants, Cleveland, and New Orleans. All 3 of them proved to be fraudulent teams as well, like you say. And last week, I scratched the Jets and Miami. I saw Miami probably losing Thursday Night Football to the Bills, knowing 0-3. So I preemptively struck against them, even though I predicted them to be in the divisional round of the playoffs this season. This week, I am scratching out the state of Texas. Dallas and Houston both have proved to me they are not playoff team material, and neither team will make the playoffs.
All right, yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see, especially if Houston can cover that 7 points at home against Tennessee. If Tennessee plays like they did last week, maybe Houston can do that. But yeah, I agree with those. Those might be some teams that I'm crossing off this weekend and week 4 too, as we get to week 5. All right, that's scratch and sniff. So we'll see how it goes. Think this is gonna probably come down to the wire. I'm not tallying up the points yet, but I see that you are tallying up the points, which is fine. It's a good thing to do. All right, you have any other things to talk about?
Uh, yeah, I figure I can change those tallies as I go, as I'm right or wrong. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm crazy.
it's
I
fine.
I like to see what I got in front of me, and if not, I would do it anyways. So I'm a little nuts like that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but no, I think the best game of the week, honestly, is going to be Tampa Bay Philadelphia. I think that would be a great game to watch and be a lot better than some of those other 1 o'clock games going on. It's amazing the way the NFL, the first 4 weeks of the season have happened. That like every time slot, there's a really good game happening, with the exception of maybe this coming Monday.
Yeah, the Monday game's not great, but I think Indianapolis at the Rams is the most interesting one to me. And we're gonna really see the Colts for what they truly are against that Rams team. So I'm really fascinated by that game. Yeah, so you're right. There's a pretty much a good game at every time slot. So all right. So looking forward to week 5 and talking about that a week from now. Anything? I wanted to talk about the Pick'em League. Crazy week with the upsets and the blocked field goals for touchdowns and all the weird things that happened. And so I picked some underdogs personally, and I was wrong about all of them, but I should have picked a different set of underdogs. But I tried. I knew there was going to be a wacky week. I just got the wrong teams. You have anything to say about the Pick'em League?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting 11 right and not even coming close. That's just insane.
Yeah.
That there's that many games that everybody knows is gonna who's gonna win, that I've been trying to throw those wacky parlays at the wall, and it's just not working. But it's like a combination of 10 games that everybody, it really comes down to 2 or 3 games, and like you said, did you pick right, did you pick wrong? No one will know until the end. So hopefully I can get a win under my belt at one point this season. It's fun to win, but I'm already slipping away on the top standings for the season. I'm already down like 10 picks just after 4 weeks or 3 weeks. So it's a lot of good people picking, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you have to. You're right. There's an element of luck picking the right upsets. You got to pick your spots and you got to be right about it. For example, Cleveland beating the Packers was shocking, but if anybody had that, gave them a good edge that this past week. All right, so then we'll wrap it up. For the mayor and myself, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.